Out of the entire season of ProQuests run around the world, only one was taken down by Levia. Jasmine of Malaysia won a 39-player ProQuest in Kuala Lumpur with a smashing performance through a Vincent, Dorinthia, and 2 Bravos, only losing to Dromai and Azuri. In top 8, Jasmine faced a Dromai, Lexi, and ultimately an Icelander to give our queen 4 living legend points. Let's hear directly from the source about her deck. Shabooya, my Shaden Death Hydras, it's Man Sant, and we're back with an update on how Levia has been doing this Bright Light season, and let me tell you, it's not too well. However, there was one person in the freaking world to get living legend points for Levia, and that was none other than Jasmine at a ProQuest out in Malaysia. So Jasmine, thank you for joining me so much. Sweet. Well, you have now joined the lucky ranks of, I think, a total of like 24 LL points in the world for Levia. So it's a big deal. And we definitely, us, the league, the viewers on YouTube, want to get to know you more. So where did you actually start your Flesh and Blood journey?
I started out around Everfest, so that was right after Chain LL. So it was pretty brute friendly.
Oh, yes.
To start out.
So then you play mostly out of... Sorry, was it Kuala Lumpur was the city?
Yeah, so I usually play around LGS around Kuala Lumpur.
For the uninitiated, that is in Malaysia. You had a Battle Harden out there recently, and
Yeah.
I did look up the tickets just for curiosity. Let me tell you, you are very far away from me, like complete opposite side of the world, and yet still Levia brings us all together, which is pretty awesome. So that actually leads to the next question then. Why Levia? What is it about that hero?
I started out with Lexi, and then I realized that I needed something more complex, which is how I ended up with Reinar. But then I got frustrated with the probabilities. Then I found Levia, and it was like getting a Rubik's Cube that you just can't solve. So it took me 1.5 years to solve it.
Wow, that is actually such a shining endorsement because not too many people play this hero, so you don't get to see a lot of the pros kind of dip their toes in and talk about the complexities of Levia. It's kind of just been a lot of us diehard shouting into the void about how complicated she actually is and not just pure high rolly. So there you go, from the mouth of Jasmine herself. This is a complex deck, more so than Lexi. You hear that? More so than Lexi. So that's pretty awesome. Well, sweet. So you say you actually perfected the deck, and we do have the deck to go ahead and take a look at. And this is honestly a pretty unique build. It's definitely something that you've taken to the drawing board and fixed kind of ratios, specifically how you like about a Levia, what you like about a Levia deck. But can you intro us more like wholesale on what this deck's game plan is?
I think I went through a lot of your decks, a lot of the other great Levia player decks, and everyone, and I just started to remove stuff from there, and I ended up with this, which is why you see one of everything, because
True.
the goal is not consistency; it's to find opportunity. Yeah.
Interesting. Can you explain why you phrase it that way a little bit more? Why not consistency? That's something that I feel like everyone tries to chase with this hero.
I feel like with this current meta, you really need to adapt really well because there's going to be there's going to be like fatigue, there's going to be hyper aggro, and sticking to only like one consistent combo or like a handful of consistent combo is not going to help. So that's why the random Howl from Beyond and the random Ghostly Visit is just to squeeze that extra damage in.
I actually really like how you phrase that because there's something in Levia where it's so obvious to look at. She can do 3-card 12 so well, and you can do it multiple ways. It can be like the Dread plus blue into Graveling. It could be, for the oldies out there, Scar for a Scar into Endless Maw. That was the thing we did. Or like Unworldly Bellow into Swing Big, or like the Double Howl into the 2-cost. Like if all you want to hit is that number, like the 3-card hands that pull off these above rate plays, you can build that way, but it is really taxing to your deck because now every hand you're trying to chase that same play. This is really, wow, you pointing it out that you're trying to pull away from that game plan is like That's crazy, crazy, but it worked. So let's dig in a little bit then, in how you say you built this deck more for opportunity. So overall, with like the one cost that we see, one that really stuck out to me, or not one cost, but the one ofs that we see, one that really stuck out to me is you trimmed down Swing Big to just a single copy, which I think for most Brute players is just crazy. That card is so good. And for me, it's incredible on like the flip turn itself, right? Is if you want to be presenting some kind of threat and flipping, Swing Big is by the numbers just the best way to do it. But you went down to just one copy. What was the reasoning there?
When I was like building my deck, I was thinking for each of the card added in, if I see this card for the second time, will I be okay with it? Will I be happy to see it? And then Swing Big just didn't cut it, because by the time it was already mid-game, Swing Big just didn't close off Blood Debt. It didn't do much for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just graveyard fodder.
That makes sense. There's obviously those hands. One of the things that you do want to do consistency-wise is always turn off Blood Debt. Even if you're throwing consistency out the window, like that does need to be at least a bit central to how Levia is trying to play. Otherwise, you do end up with all the self-destruction. So one thing that you've also added is like a little bit of the hand banishers, right? Just this extra way of not always relying on graveyard to be able to turn off Blood Debt. And that's with some of the new cards from Dusk Till Dawn, right? Like the Ram Raider and the Blood Dripping Frenzy, which you've got just the one Ram Raider for that beautiful Slithering combo and the Blood Dripping Frenzy. How'd you find these cards?
Ram Raider really saved me in games where it was hyper aggro and I didn't have the graveyard set up. So I was just like, okay, banish, okay, claw. Still coming for 9. Still doing something.
Yeah, were there any situations specifically where like you couldn't banish from graveyard, so this card banishing from hand, like that was it? That was literally what won you the game?
It was, I caught myself in a really bad situation mid-game with Bravo. And it was life or death situation, basically. If I miss it, I take my Blood Debt. And I had, I think, 5 non-6s and only 3 6s. So the odds were pretty bad. So when I pulled this mid-game, I was like, oh, thank goodness. Because I
That's huge.
arsenaled a Graveling Growl, yeah.
Wow, actually, when you put it that way, Ram Raider not only can ignore a bad graveyard like that, but you're now adding guaranteed like 2 6s in as well, right? The Ram Raider plus whatever you play after. So that's pretty interesting. I've splashed it as a one of several times, but I swear every time I put this card in Arsenal, I regret it. So maybe I just don't do that and let it be that drawing up the hand, see if this is like the toolbox play I need, kind of the way you're talking about it, and I'll end up liking this card more. Not bad, not bad. So one other thing though, talking about combos, is you do run kind of a like heaviest core of Dread Screamers, right? Out of all the other cards, you aren't reaching 7 copies like you are of Dread Screamer. In terms of consistency, this card is kind of that for Levia, right? You play it, it's got that beautiful go again. But one of the things with Dread Screamer, right, is you pitch it, you have the one resource floating, you're looking for that 1 cost follow-up, but you're not running the blue 1 cost Diabolic Offering, which also came out in Bright Lights. That's honestly been a little contentious. Like some people love it, some people hate it. Where did you end up with that card, especially seeing how you really kind of want the 1 cost?
I swapped out with Diabolic Offering for Blood Dripping Frenzy, mainly because of the block. Yeah, in this hyper aggro meta, I mean where I am, it's still aggro meta lah. So it's performing much better.
Sure. Yeah, drawing up hands of, well, this card could block 6, but right now it blocks 0, and that kind of loses me the game. Yeah, that definitely does feel pretty bad. But also in the blue slot, speaking of kind of aggro metas, right? You need to figure out a way to actually close the game in Levia, because if you're just trading hands back and forth, you're an aggro deck, your opponent's an aggro deck, all you're doing is slamming numbers at each other. If you don't find that like go over 12 block hand first, then your small hands normally can falter to close. So what I love to see in your list is just the addition of so many ways to end the game on small hands. You've got the Writhing Beast Hulk, you've got the blue convulsions, and on top of that, the reckless swings, which some people like Mark Johnson have been claiming are the worst card in Levia. So out of kind of all these ways to end the game, going too wide, having like dominates here, having reckless, how did you find you were really ending the games among all this stuff?
Oh, I think I really found the sweet spot with ending the games here because of consumed and everything. Even if I did miss consume, I still have Breathing Bisshulk to rely on and the reckless. So there's many ways to close the game, and it's been helping me out with Bravo specifically.
I tend to find the Bravo matchup to be one of the most fun matchups for Levia because it generally takes longer to play. They block with you, they play that numbers game. But then if they're playing a numbers game, you just end up on top. How do you feel overall then into the Bravo matchup? Is that pretty standard for you too?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar everywhere. Except like here in Malaysia, the Bravos are happy to take the damage and whack you with the Crippling Crush. So you need to present something bigger than Crippling Crush. Make them lose their hand, yeah.
In terms of the recursion, though, that sometimes is like brought in to help the Bravo matchup specifically, you're not super dedicated to like a recursion core. You know, we don't see like the Unworldlies, we don't see the Deep-Rooted Evil in your list. It's just like that little splash, like you mentioned. What do you think about like kind of the recursion core game plan versus like how you're pulling it off here?
I only focus on recursion if it's for long games,
Mhm.
like like Bravo. So for Bravo, I bring in two Howl, and then I bring in one Shadow of Plasmafit, just so that in the case that I do get two blues, I just whack that and add a Breathing Bisshulk to it. That's the game plan,
Oh, it's so
and
good.
that did close the game for me.
Oh, it's so good,
And
right? Like
and he,
the 12 dominate
yeah,
is just insane.
and he
What do they
kept
do?
choosing the Howl from Beyond, so I kept recycling it.
Okay, well, actually, here's a question because this popped up recently when we saw the Levia on stream back in Melbourne. It was a new way to shuffle the graveyard I hadn't seen before. So I think maybe that's like the least standard part about how Levia players play the deck is like how do you present your graveyard to your opponent? What's your method?
I just take it, shuffle, and let them choose their fate.
Okay, so it's just up to them if they want to pick like three off the
Yeah,
top, spread it out, three from the middle. Okay.
it kind of like disturbs their mental state a bit,
Hmm.
so it plays into me as well. Yeah.
Nice, nice. I've started to learn from Michael Hamilton. He is a big fan of rolling all three dice at the same time, where he'll like spread out the graveyard and count out, oh, there's like 8 targets. So he'll roll like 3d8s and then just like pick 1, 2, 3. It's crazy. Because there's no waiting, it's just you're ripping off the band-aid immediately. If you roll those 3 dice and they're all 3 of the misses, then that's that. Like you just wipe your hands, you're done. I've actually enjoyed it. Just get it out of the way faster. So speaking of like the pitfalls, then in your tournament run itself, how did the Levia kind of like lose con of Blood Debt? Did that ever come up? Did you have like the major whiff scenarios, or was the consume flip like just too good, always got you there?
I didn't always turn consume. I did roll once,
Oh yes.
but then I had Gambler's Glove and I rolled the 2 action points. Yeah.
Easy.
I
Easy.
did with one Dread Screamer, which lost me my game against Dromai.
But you mentioned you're not generally flipping consumed most games. I guess how do you approach the like consumed versus redeemed? Is it consumed comes up if it comes up? You're always playing for consumed. You want to bait people to playing into consumed, but you're really always redeemed. I like that one. How do you normally play with the demi hero?
My deck is actually very Blood Debt heavy,
Mm-hmm.
so it always reaches like 13 pretty easily if I want to. So most people will be like, okay, she's gonna miss the trigger, it's gonna lose her game, make her lose her game, but Redeem is there to save me. So I managed to get myself out of like situations like Kodachi locks and stuff
Oh yes.
thanks to Redeem.
Oh, okay, good. I'm so glad you endorsed redeemed. I love redeemed so much. Like it's obvious that consumed is not so powerful. You just like gain all this intellect. But the agency over redeemed and like one of the coolest plays you can do, right, is like go right to one, but then also have armor up. Then you flip redeemed, and it's like, oh my god, you just flipped into like 13 life basically. I love playing with redeemed. I feel like there's more, like outplay potential with this card. But then looking at your sideboard overall, there are some interesting things that come up. One of the first comments I saw when you shared the deck list in the League of Levia was that you were a Romping Club enjoyer, but you said you never actually brought it in. What was the game plan that you thought Romping Club was helping with?
If it was the old Icelander, the pure like insidious chill and everything, it would have been Romping Club. But then I thought, you know what? Maybe it's the Woolander, and I was right. So it was just an extra slot.
Sure. So you're even opting for, if it's like the pure arcane, Romping Club over like Ravenous Meataxe, which is sometimes like what people want there.
Yeah, because most of the time they're going to ask you to discard.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. I guess if they're going the pure arcane, then they are leaning into like more of the discard effects. So that makes sense. But you never had to use it. It's just there to flex on them. It probably should have been a Bone Basher in that case if you're really going for the flex. Just saying. But there's some other cool stuff in your sideboard that is a bit off kilter, right? Like you're still running Skull Crushers and Skullhorn, which I think a lot of lists have stopped running because you can run like Grasp of Darkness now in this arm slot and just kind of block 2 at this cheeky, when you would take damage step. It's crazy. And then also not running Spoiled Skull, which beyond just being like an AB piece, I have loved Spoiled Skull into Dromai. Especially now that the Dromai has stopped running so much Lost in Thought. You don't really have to worry too much about like the Ponder maybe messing with you and like needing Crown. If you run Spoiled Skull into Dromai, I feel like the win percentage goes up like a solid 20%. That card is nuts, but they're not here. So why? Sure. Just keep it easy. Why?
Well, Skullhorn was mostly for Icelander, a Skullhorn Nullrune combo with the scabs. Yeah. And the Skull Crusher is purely for ninjas and Lexi.
So you just want the one block kind of to upfront prevent a breakpoint rather than grasp, I guess would be
and
the difference.
If you're rolling and you get a 5 or 6, that +1 damage could mean could win you the game in the long run.
Okay. All right. Okay.
If you keep chipping the damage.
I see. So you do roll in those matchups then.
Yes.
Even without gamblers. If you don't roll, you can't roll well, and that's just my problem, I think. But cool. This list overall, kind of from a higher level point, right? We mentioned it is from kind of built from the core of like the performing Levia lists, or maybe not even performing, but kind of like the publicized Levia list, and then tweaking it and making it your own. So speaking of the tweaking, then like Lexi is now gone, right? LL'd, good riddance. What do you think you would change in the list since you don't have to plan for that? What I thought was not a good matchup. I don't know how you felt about it though.
Oh, Lexi was so hard.
Okay, thank you.
I think I had to fight an kind of like an ice Lexi in my top 8, and I thought it was over. But then my Blood Rush came in with the Beast Within, and it dealt like 26 damage, so that saved me.
26 damage will cross the line, indeed. If you can make like the Lexi games shorter, then they see less insanely powerful cards, right? So it is still like gated a little bit by needing to draw Blood Rush, but at least the game was playable. It wasn't like an auto lose. You just needed to see like, are my first 4 hands of the game gonna let me even potentially win? But if they don't, then God, that matchup. I'm so glad I don't have to worry about that for Worlds. Holy moly, I wouldn't be on the deck if that was the case. So then Lexi's gone, right? And there are some slots that are pretty clearly like Ranger oriented. Command and Conquer is pretty big there. You even mentioned like the Skull Crushers. So what would you adjust, kind of seeing the Bright Lights meta with maybe Dash IO performing to the point where like you need to worry about her as a matchup? What do you think you would change?
CNC out of there.
Okay.
Absolutely did nothing for Levia other than threatening Arsenal, which is not much now in this current meta, I feel. So I'll probably swap it out for something else. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe smashing performance.
Oh, spicy. Yeah, I've been playing some Smashing Performance, and let me tell you, the Dash IO game plan of like straight racing it's pretty hard. That deck deals a lot of damage, so adding more non-blocks is like kind of sketchy. But that card generally, no hate. You know, if you blow up like a Teklo Pounder on a normal Dash matchup, insane. So okay, swapping a 6 for a 6 makes sense. It like maintains some of the 6 density you care about. What about overall then, like things that didn't perform well for you? Are there any red flags that you still think need adjusting, even though you took home the win?
I didn't have enough courage for Savage Feast in the deck yet.
So you just
I
took
found
it but
myself
didn't
like
roll?
chickening out. Yeah. Yeah, I chickened out.
Oh come on,
It was there, but I chickened out.
you're a Skull Crusher's Scabskins enjoyer. How can you not roll for Savage Feast? I even do that.
I think just for ninjas.
I've become quite high on this card. I didn't run it for the longest time because like Scabs is so scary. But the ability to kind of have a singular card that says if Scabs hit, my turn like might do 18 is crazy. Like there's no other card that's gated by Scabskins in that way. So I don't think it's like too greedy to add in a couple copies, because it's not like your whole game plan is like built that way. It's like what you were talking about actually, about kind of the toolbox nature, just the opportunity of Leviathans to function in like 6 different ways. Savage Feast is like definitely one of those cards. Do you keep the full hand and like need Scabs to hit to play it? Probably not. Probably that's still probably wrong, but hey, you know what? When we play on Talishar, I definitely make some of those bad choices, and sometimes they're not so bad choices, eh? So I would implore you, keep giving it a go. This card is still, in my book, quite nice, quite nice. But okay, so overall then, you claimed early on you cracked the code with this list for Levia. That's huge, because I think even people who do well with Levia always have doubts. It was always, deck performed, but it didn't perform yesterday. It was just today, blah, blah, blah. How would you sales pitch Levia overall, especially seeing as you've obviously got confidence in the deck, to someone who is looking to play in the Bright Lights meta?
Levia is definitely a complex hero, not something you can just pick up and play. But if you put the reps in, she'll definitely give you the power that you need to present 26 in one turn. I don't think any other hero can do such a thing. So yeah.
Well, Dash IO.
Put the reps in.
Yeah, put the reps
okay.
in. Put the reps in, and like you're saying, the toolbox nature of seeing a hand and kind of going beyond because of either like the sprinkling of recursion pieces, or like what a Scabskin can do to your hand, or even now like with cards you're running like Blood Dripping Frenzy, what is that going to change rather than like this being my pitch card? What if it's the card I play? I think you're absolutely right. Levia can go so deep. I'm still so madly in love with this hero. I am probably going to be playing it for Worlds. Are you going to be at Worlds, Jasmine, by the way?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, I'll take this one off your back. This one doesn't have to be your win. I got to do something for once. I'll try for all of us Levia players at home to do her proud. And actually, your list helped a lot in kind of framing some of the fringe picks that I wasn't sure could like perform, but here you are obviously proving it. So I'll have to drawing board a couple other cards. I'll tell you right now, this card I'm incredibly hype on in the testing I'm doing so far. So to wrap up the video, Shaden Death Hydra, did you actually come in for like the Dream 14 Dominate? Did you ever even play it for 13?
I had the chance to, but I was too chicken. I was too chicken. I chickened out.
Oh, come on. So you're saying like you could play it, but maybe Blood Debt wasn't turned off? Is that the problem?
No. I was already consumed.
Oh. So then what's chicken about? Just do it, baby. Slam that card. Oh, speaking of that number 26, by the way, I have pulled off in testing some Tear Limb from Limb Shaden Death Hydra plays. It's insane. It's not going to happen every game, but it's about like adding that ceiling to your deck, right? So that those highs are even remotely possible. So yeah, I hugely endorse this card, even if apparently you can't. What the heck? But yeah, so Jasmine, I think that's going to be pretty much it for the video. Wanted to keep it short and sweet. You've obviously done something really special here. Truly only person in the world, like we mentioned, to get LL points this season. Hopefully that changes with a little help from Jasmine's deck building, from a little help from the League of Levia Discord, which you can join below. Any last shout outs before we wrap up?
Keep at it. Let's bring Levia more LL points. Woo!
But not too many, right? We don't actually want her
Not
to
too
LL.
many. Not too many.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. Save it for those precious moments. But thank you so much, Jasmine. It's really cool to have a success story. I mean, it really came so late. I thought we were going to go an entire season with no win. And here you are proving that with dedication, with really precise deck building, it can still happen. So with that, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully we all learned a little something today. Once again, Jasmine, thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.